We can just remind that we are in the second session of the webinar series that we started 2 weeks ago. This is entitled International Education and Career, and we are holding meetings every Tuesday in Polish and every Wednesday in English. In the meantime, if you can see us and hear us right now, just leave us a comment and we'll be very grateful for that. 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how to apply for international studies, how to search for different study programs and align them with our own expectations, career goals, learning styles, etc., etc. Now we are during our studies, which means we will be talking how to maximize the potential of our studies, how to make sure that our studies are for a purpose, that we can use them as a tool to develop our own professional skills and to be better prepared for the job market. And in 2 weeks from now, on the 12th of August in Polish and on the 13th of August in English, we will be focusing more on the technical aspect of the applications for jobs, such as crafting standout CV, application documents like cover letters, motivational letters, application essays, and so on. How to search for a job more proactively, how to develop our presence on social media, and how to find so-called hidden opportunities that aren't publicly available. And Natalia is helping me all the time with the preparation for all these sessions, but her expertise mainly relates to the final session in 2 weeks from now, where she will be sharing her professional experience with applications for job. We can imagine that some of you who are watching us or will be watching us later haven't met us already. Therefore, we would like to introduce ourselves very briefly again. Natalia, I can ask you to introduce yourself before I will introduce myself.
Thank you so much, Patrick. So basically, I'm currently ambassador for Europass and Euroguidance tools. Those tools helps young people to learn and work across Europe, and I'm trying to train young people how to present themselves in front of recruiter, how to prepare the application documents, and how to basically get the best job as they can. But of course, as we know, before that, we need a good education. And that's why we combine with Patrick our expertise. So basically, we are trying to fill the gap between academic and professional space. Very often students especially don't know actually what to do after the studies, or they don't know what to study and how to use the time during the studies, which will be affecting their professional life. So I'm saying it also as a former recruiter in Dubai. I used to hire people, I used to screen the CVs and conduct the interviews. So I'm trying to give as much as I can the practical knowledge and practical tips for young people who are entering the job and the international job market.
Yeah, thank you, Natalia. As you mentioned, we are combining academic and professional experience. Both our experiences are international. As regards myself, I'm mainly a lecturer at University of Bristol. I also work at University of Oxford. And this work includes, among other things, mentoring students. We also mentor students, helping them to apply across various countries and various universities, also apply for scholarships, for internships, and on the job market. And therefore, our sessions here are designed to collect and organize and synthesize our own academic materials, such as my materials that I develop at University of Oxford for teachers, for learners, but also on our own experiences and daily routine, cooperating with students and applicants with very different expectations, goals, learning styles, etc., etc. Therefore, as I've mentioned before, 2 weeks ago, and you can watch the recording if you haven't done so already, we were talking about how to choose a country, so a study destination, as well as university and study program, to align them with our own working styles, learning approaches, and career goals. Today, we are going to talk more about developing transferable skills. So once we have selected our studies, once we are students at our universities, how to maximize the potential of our programs, how to make a sense, how to not to get lost, and to make our studies as purposeful as possible. Which means that whatever we do and wherever we study and whatever we study, we can always develop our own competencies and skills that will be for sure relevant in the job market. And this is the main message from today's meeting with you. We will talk about various definitions and types of skills and where the so-called transferable skills are located within that context. We will be then focusing on 7 areas of transferable skills. These aren't individual skills, but areas of skills. We will be going through them today, each time discussing how you can develop them during your studies and how you can promote them, how you can talk about them more confidently during job applications, for example, interviews, but also in cover letters and CVs. And finally, I'll give you an example from my own materials about how to plan writing an essay or a research paper. These 2 academic assignments are quite similar to each other in the context of our talk today, and how you can again plan them with the aim of not just improving your marks, you can do so just by the way, but how to develop your professional skills, okay? Behind planning and writing, for example, an academic essay. This isn't just a normal essay. This is a very relevant tool, thanks to which you can let your recruiters know that you have already gathered work experience, even if you haven't worked formally outside of academia. So there are 2 main classifications of skills. Of course, there are more of them, and there are different approaches to categorize and organize various skills and competencies. But these are the 2 ones that are quite relevant and commonly used. And within them, we can again situate, contextualize the transferable skills that we'll be focusing on later in this session. So as regards the first classification of skills by type, or in other words, by nature, we can, as you know, differentiate between hard skills and soft skills. Hard skills are usually measurable, okay, and more objective. They refer to technical or specialist abilities. They are based on expert knowledge in a specific field or industry. You can study and learn those skills in your own study programs, and they relate, for example, to law, to medicine, to expert knowledge in economics, politics, chemistry, whatever else. Whereas the transferable skills that I will be talking about in a second will be relevant for you regardless of your study programs and your industry in the future. Typically, hard skills are acquired through formal education and formal training. And by contrast, soft skills are much more difficult to measure. They are more subjective, and they refer not to technical or specialist knowledge, but to social and organizational abilities. They allow you to function in different environments, okay? Again, they aren't focused on specific industries or specific study programs, and they are mostly developed through practice and informal experience rather than formal education. But of course, we are to some extent generalizing right now. What are the examples of the soft skills? Of course, this is personal development, a very popular term nowadays. These are also teamwork and communication skills, as well as various routines, norms of behavior, patterns of functioning, and so on. We do also differentiate between social competences and transferable skills. This is the classification based on not the nature of the skills, but the application of the skills or the function of the skills. So how you can use our skills, not just what area they relate to. Yeah. And social competencies is a very broad term, whereas the transferable skills are part of the broader category of the social competencies. These social competencies are a system-wide concept rooted in education and society. They are, generally speaking, essential for participating in social life. They are often defined formally, such as by the European Commission in the document entitled 8 Key Competencies for Lifelong Learning. And for example, this Commission's policy is a guidance, serves as a guidance for national educational policies across member states of the European Union that try to reform their educational systems to make them more adaptive to changes in a society, broadly speaking. These social competencies relate to study skills, so how to learn more effectively. This is what we do also very often in our work with Natalia, to cultural awareness. Another set of competencies we are dealing with too, critical thinking and digital skills. For example, the transferable skills, as I've mentioned, are part of the social competencies, but they are more focused on the job market. These can be seen as the practical tools allowing us to work more efficiently or to apply for work. The main characteristic or the main quality of the transferable skills is that can be applied across industries. So again, they refer to a society, broadly speaking. These are part of the social competences, but in particular, they focus on work, on professional life, and on our ability to work across various industries. They therefore also refer to lifelong learning and how to develop our abilities of adaptability, for example, across different industries. They are often informally defined, therefore it's more difficult to classify them or to define them, but this is what we are going to do right now in this session. And the examples of these transferable skills are time management, problem solving, improving efficiency or performance at our work, for example. But as I've mentioned, we've identified 7 core areas and we will be going through them later today. So what are the main highlights from this part, the first part of this webinar? Basically, the first classification refers to hard and soft skills that describe what abilities we have. And the second classification, so that the differentiation between social and transferable skills, show where we can apply our skills. So of course, all these skills and the 2 main classifications do overlap. Yes, so we can discuss very similar or even the same examples of skills, but they can be classified differently according to how do we want to analyze them, how do we want to apply them. And within the second classification, so the classification of skills by their function, we, as you know, already differentiate between social skills and transferable skills. Social skills are, again, a very broad concept that allow us to function effectively in a society, in relations with others, but also with ourselves. And the transferable skills relate more to working across various industries and adapting to new roles on our career developments. But what we have to remember, and this is the foundation for what we are going to talk in a second, that all these skills, including transferable skills, can be developed during our studies. Okay, and also not just at universities, but in the broader context of learning processes, of developing our abilities to learn. Even when you study theory, when you focus just on scientific research, even when you only write academic papers or publications, so you are quite theoretical at first glance at your work, you can still develop the transferable skills. So the skills that you can that can also allow you to work practically on the job market outside of academia. And this is what we want to tell you about right now. So how we can identify the practical skills, the professional skills that we can develop already when we are at university, even if we do not have any formal professional experience yet. So these are the 7 transferable skills, the 7 key areas of the transferable skills that we'll be talking through: interpersonal communication, creativity, stress management, analytical and critical thinking, leadership, independence, and emotional intelligence. We'll be going through them each time, discussing what do they mean, why are they relevant, and how we can develop them during studies, and then showcase in the process of applications for a job. So starting from the first skill, interpersonal communication. This skill covers our abilities to present our thoughts, to articulate our thoughts and ideas clearly and concisely, to be understood by others. And this is also part of what we teach students at universities, that we should be able to communicate about our research and research findings in a way that is easy to understand by everyone, even by those people who aren't expert in our fields of expertise. Yeah, using too difficult, too technical knowledge, particularly if we want to promote it, so we aren't just meeting within very closed groups at our corporation or whatever, we are part of a closed team of experts, but we want to promote something, we want to communicate about something more broadly, we have to also adapt our technical knowledge to a language that is simply more approachable. Okay, we need to learn how to argue things more effectively. We need to develop our confidence in public speaking. And this also allows very often more collaborative decision making by including various insights and various perspectives. So why interpersonal communication skills matter? In academia, of course, we can share ideas, we can present our research findings more effectively. And what I have mentioned already, we are able to promote the knowledge. And this is what we are trying to do also with Natalia, trying to reach beyond academia or professional environments to communicate more broadly about what we have learned there, and hoping to inspire other people. For example, those of you who are applying for jobs or internships or just for studies. We are trying to do our best to share with you what we have learned so that you can gain more insights into what's happening behind the hidden curtains and how to prepare better for your internships or jobs or studies. At work, the interpersonal communication skills are very relevant too. It's quite obvious. They allow effective teamwork. They allow for having a more positive atmosphere. In life, interpersonal communication skills help us build relationships, set boundaries, understand others, and also help us being understood by others. So how to develop these kind of skills during your studies? You can practice it almost every day. Yes, you can try to speak up, share your thoughts, ask questions during seminar discussions, during lectures, in other university settings. A minor tip: if you feel shy, you can start by adding to other words to say even, yes, I do agree, what you said is very relevant, is very beneficial, whatever. It's the first step to build your self-confidence in public speaking. And of course, you can observe those of your classmates who are listened to. Okay, how do they behave, how confident they are? You can also very often notice they aren't very confident. Even if you are used to speaking publicly, we aren't always confident. We can feel better or worse in various circumstances or in relation to various topics we can talk about. Even if you don't feel very self-confident, it doesn't have to mean that you don't feel confident in every situation. Okay, you can try to identify topics or places where you can feel more confident, and in those topics or places you can start speaking publicly and test your own boundaries and try to cross them. How to showcase this kind of student experiences in recruitment. So you can just mention, and I know it's very obvious, but sometimes it's good to remind ourselves of what we can do, and what we have done already during our studies, and that we can promote these simple things, these daily routines, also in recruitment, because most of us forget about it. Yes. So we can lose the chance of promoting ourselves as much as we could do. And therefore, it's worth mentioning some obvious things and to create kind of a mind map, Okay, you can develop a very long list of examples of your activities that are very obvious to you, so that you don't even think that you can promote them during job recruitments. Yes, but you can try to do it. So it's good to have a longer list of different activities, such as the fact that you present in classes, that you had oral presentations, and what did that help you in. So you can say you improved your marks, you developed your confidence. So you have certain achievements. Even if you say you've enhanced your marks, you start getting higher marks. This, of course, suggests that you are developing yourselves in public speaking, for example. You can say about your experiences with different forms of communication, such as the oral presentations, but also maybe you took part in moderating debates. Maybe you attended conferences and just asked one question. You didn't have to be a presenter during a conference, a speaker. It's enough for you to ask one simple question from the audience. And this is something you can also mention. I attended conferences, I asked questions, I took active part, in other words, yes, in such events. And you can give examples of your teamwork. So you have many opportunities, whatever you study and wherever you study, to engage with other people, to learn with other people. Maybe you could help someone to find necessary materials such as books. Maybe you co-organized or organized alone a meeting before a joint presentation, even if it's just a couple of minutes before your classes, yes? So you could be more proactive in engaging with others, in communicating with others. I'm sure that everyone can identify many examples of activities that can be related to what we call interpersonal communication skills. The other area of transferable competences is creativity, which means we can think outside the box. We can combine information, available, ready data in new creative ways. Yes, this is what we very often do and practice when we work with students writing their dissertations, to propose a contribution to existing academic research. Yes, and it doesn't have to mean that we have to reinvent a wheel, that we have to identify a total vacuum, that some information is totally missing from the existing academic sources. Quite to the contrary, it's enough to refer to the information that we know already from the academic sources, but maybe compare them with each other, but maybe make them more up to date, maybe have a look at them from a different perspective. Yes, so we can rediscuss things that have already been discussed, just to propose a new perspective, slightly new perspective, a tiny fraction of theoretical contexts, and apply them so that we can say we have contributed, at least to some extent, to a limited extent, to existing research. And this is an example of developing our creativity. And this is what you can tell your recruiters about. Another example of the creativity skills is that we can generate original ideas and insights, which is of course harder to do, but still we can try to discuss various problems and discuss ideas how to solve the problems. And from that discussion, more easily generate some new ideas. The university environments enhance your chances of figuring out something new, which isn't so obvious and isn't so easy outside of academia very often. But of course, when you work, yes, at certain companies, firms, etc., also through brainstorming, you may have an ability to figure out new things. But this is again a matter of practice, a matter of communicating with others. So I'm referring to the skill I have described already. A matter of engaging with people, trying to exchange thoughts, ideas, and this helps us generate some new, for example, proposals to solve a problem. Of course, the creativity also supports our adaptability. Yes, because if we are more creative, if we are able to propose new solutions to solve problems, we can better handle with unexpected challenges. we can better adapt ourselves to new circumstances at work, in daily life, etc. What we very often do at universities, and this is what you can also do more consciously when you study, is that it's good to try to solve the same problems using different approaches. And here we have a very nice tool, which seems to be boring to many of us at first glance, is that you can apply theories. Of course, theories can be boring if we do not apply them practically, okay? If we do not refer the theories to explain certain practical problems. But we are very used to discuss theories in academia, identify various perspectives from which we can analyze things, from which we can look at things, from which we can propose different solution proposals and understand a broader picture of various perspectives. There are also examples of economic students who run virtual campaigns just for the purpose of academic studies to promote, for example, new benefits of kind of old products or services, something that hasn't been promoted yet. There are also other ideas how we can engage in brainstorming and think more differently than others. And all these things can be promoted in job applications. Even if you have someone access how to find data, even if you manage to solve some technical issues, it's still an example of how you can promote your creativity. Stress management is another field, another area of transferable competences, which basically relates to abilities to coping with pressure and uncertainty, to maintaining a positive mindset, emotional control, and this lowers our sensitivity to negative effects of failure, exhaustion, or burnout. In academia, it can, of course, help maintain high quality work, more effective learning during exam periods, while you work or prepare essays, whatever, to tight deadlines. At work, stress management can support rational decision making. In life, it can positively impact mental health and relationship with others. It's good to create action plans to avoid the subjective feeling that we are under strong pressure. Yes, if we have action plans for a week, for a month, for semester, if we break tasks into smaller steps, we are more likely to complete everything on time. Yes, because we do not think about the end goal of the process, which can seem to be too ambitious or too difficult for us. First, we have to take small steps and complete them, and then everything seems to be more easy. And again, there are many opportunities to work to tight deadlines, to work under pressure. And you can talk about these situations during job interviews or in your cover letters or CVs. How you handled a crisis, like how to deal with technical difficulties, issues, how to deal with multiple tasks at once. You have this experience during your studies. The fourth area of transferable competencies is analytical and critical thinking. This relates to analyzing information, to drawing accurate conclusions, to evaluating arguments, a very relevant thing that I will be talking about in the third part when speaking about preparation of essays and research papers. Also to verify credibility of sources. Why it matters? Of course, in studies, it's very relevant to access relevant and reliable sources, to explain why our topics that we select for our research, for example, or presentations are relevant. At work, these analytical and critical thinkings are extremely important because they support risk assessment, error prevention, effective problem solving, all these types of assets and abilities that are highly valued by our supervisors or team leaders or managers. In life, of course, analytical and critical thinking strengthens our resistance to manipulation, helps us better understand, for example, media content, verify reliability, credibility of the media content, helps us make more informed decision. You can test your own abilities to assess whether arguments raised by other people, by peer students, also by professors, lecturers, are logical and clear. As I've said, arguments must be clearly articulated. If they aren't, it's harder for us to assess the credibility of the arguments. Yes, therefore, it's in the interest of those who articulate their arguments to make them clear and easy to verify by their audience. It's of course good to focus on primary sources as much as you can when you do your own research work, not just on secondary data, not just on interpretations. So the primary sources relate to documents, speeches, other data that is produced directly by the people, by the actors who we analyze. Yes, if we analyze policymakers, we should get access to speeches or publications, documents published by those policymakers, and not just look at interpretations, media reports, NGO reports, even academic work that only interprets the original information. We should even try to verify the quality of the interpretations by comparing the interpretations with the original information if possible. And how events are reported across media, for example, how far communication, the information about certain events is emotional and how far it's fact-based. And again, you can tell your recruiters that you have already developed your abilities to engage with primary data, assess quality, credibility of data, information, etc., etc. For example, you can see 3 examples on the slide. I can mention one. During teamwork, you can say, during teamwork, I spotted a wrong assumption and proposed a different approach which improved the outcome. It's good to say, I was proactive. I proposed something. I noticed something that other people didn't notice. I proposed a solution. I changed something. And what kind of result did I achieve as a result of it? Yeah. The 5th area we have identified relates to leadership. And leadership is not about managing people. It's not about ruling. It's about leading a team, leading other people, and inspire them to work. Yes, it's about coordinating tasks, delegating tasks within a group. It's about organizing events. And finally, it's about taking responsibility, not just for ourselves, but for our team, for the other people we cooperate with. Because if we coordinate tasks, a good leader can assess personal characteristics and abilities of team members and can decide who can do what. Yes, based on our assessment of, again, individual abilities of the people to do different things. So if we delegate tasks to different people, we can also take part of the responsibility for a project, for example, that is completed by all of us based on how we divided tasks. This is what leadership is about, not about ruling people, okay, but about coordinating their work and being at this party responsible for coordinating tasks, delegating tasks, and planning everything in cooperation with others, not by imposing certain solutions on others. The leadership skills make teamwork easier, help solve conflicts within a team, and what's also important, they can help people cooperate, for example, in jointly defending their interests against employers, against managers, against other companies. Because if people can coordinate their own positions, they can mutually complement each other's strengths, okay, in the process of articulating needs or interests towards third parties. Leadership abilities can help plan things together, divide tasks, motivate yourself and others. Try to test all these kind of skills during studies. Try to divide tasks. If you cooperate with someone on a group project, try to organize or co-organize events. There are many events in academia like conferences, student clubs, other meetings. Even when you work alone, you can try delegate tasks. For example, you can ask your teacher for help. Yes, and this is again an example showing you took kind of leadership role because you delegated some tasks. You decided that you can also use or make use, so to say, resources or abilities of other people to help you with certain projects. You can say, I co-organize an academic conference. And what did you do? What did you do exactly in this? process. You can say you were able to find another team member if someone dropped out. Yes, you found a replacement. And again, you could assess the abilities of the people who are joining the project later, whether they can help you finish the group project on time, for example. Independence is another set of skills that relates to our personal goals and values, how far we can set them, identify them, and implement, realize them. It's also about self-motivation, about organization of our work, and about self-discipline, so that we keep the focus on completing our tasks. We keep ourselves motivated. It's also about working in line with expectations or policies of our company, of our bosses, without constant supervision. This is a relevant point that I wanted to highlight. Therefore, I'm repeating the same phrase on this slide. We should work without the need to be supervised, to be controlled, whatever. And this is an asset that is very much valued by employers. And how can we develop independence skills during our studies? Try to complete tasks without relying on others. So on the one hand, as I've mentioned before, we can ask others for help, but only if we identify someone who can help us because they have greater resources, higher abilities to help us. If not, or if it's not accurate, because the project needs to be individual according to certain policies or assessment criteria, try to rely on yourself, okay? Try to maybe collect some information before asking your teachers for help. And then after you have collected something, after you have analyzed certain data, you can ask your teacher for help to verify whether what you found is relevant or accurate or whatever. And it's good to keep your motivation over time, as I've said. And this is, again, there are many opportunities to practice it during your studies, because there are many courseworks that are boring. It's quite difficult to keep engaged, to think that certain things are truly interesting if they aren't interesting to you. Yes, but this is our challenge, to keep motivation, and then you can tell the story of how you did it when speaking to your employers. You can try to maintain work-life balance, and of course you can try to look for more interesting examples when you write on your essay, for example. Yes, or you can try to apply more interesting methods of collecting and analyzing data. What about engaging with interviews? Yes, or ethnographic research that can be found more interesting. And again, examples like taking initiative, making a decision, contacting others, but on your own when you decide it for yourself, are the examples you can then tell about when speaking to your recruiters. And the final, seventh area of transferable skills we have identified relates to emotional intelligence. And I personally think it's a crucial, maybe the most relevant asset we can develop when thinking about our future career, because this is the last asset that will be taken over by robots, so to say, or by AI software. Yes, knowledge alone is not as relevant as it was in the past. Knowledge and expertise alone doesn't make us as competitive as it did years ago, because we can now search for information very easily. It's more difficult to verify the quality of information, reliability of the sources, as I've mentioned. But what's getting more relevant is to communicate with others, to take into account others' emotions, to respond with empathy, to, when cooperating with people, to look not only at their expertise and knowledge, but also how they behave, what's their background, how they can communicate with us. If we know how to identify problems in communication, for example, we are more likely to reduce tension and to cooperate more effectively with people in the longer term. This is what the AI cannot help us with as much as with like finding data. And therefore, we should develop emotional intelligence, broadly speaking, empathy, broadly speaking. We can do it during our studies, of course, trying to understand others, trying to listen more actively other people, other students or teachers, and try to assess them through the context, through their background, through their own cultural identity, etc., which can also be identified as an asset. If we meet people coming from different cultural backgrounds, we can probably learn new modes of cooperation, new approaches to solve certain problems. We can also share our own style of work, of learning with others. So we can exchange our styles of communication, of learning, of working to the benefit of a whole team, for example. And you can tell your recruiter how you helped reconcile different point of views, whereas working with students of different nationalities. How you adapted to different communication and working styles, as I've mentioned, learning from others, but also sharing with others your own approach.
Sure. I'm not sure if we mentioned already that you can ask any questions in a comment box, of course, or directly in our boxes in LinkedIn or
Yes.
email addresses. I have one question from the audience. How we can use that soft skills on a job market? And before you, Patrick, answer this question, I just want to mention from the recruiter perspective that, of course, we don't have to show off all our skills that we gain during the studies when we try to apply for a job, but we have to adjust the skills that the recruiter wants to see in our CV and think that we are the best fit for this role. So basically, once we build our portfolio, for example, in Excel sheet, we need to adjust it to each role that we are applying for. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that we don't show all our qualifications, studies, courses, achievements, so on and so forth, but we have to choose what is actually recruiter trying to see and find actually in a candidate's experience. And we need to read a job description very carefully.
Yes, and very often it's not the knowledge that is examined or tested by the recruiters. We are asked to showcase our transferable skills instead of presenting our hard skills such as expertise. What I heard also from students applying for internships during their studies at Bristol, for example, they were surprised that they were given 10 or 20 minutes to find certain data, certain information by searching the web, and then comment on how they assess the credibility of this data. So it wasn't, again, a process of testing expertise or knowledge, but how they behave when facing certain practical challenges and completing certain practical tasks. And of course, what we do right now today is to give as many tips as possible, but you have to personalize this information, what we have done, because sometimes we forget about very obvious things, and to think how to select appropriate words, phrases, and how to communicate about our experiences in job interviews, but also in CV, particularly if we are going to write a descriptive CV, narrative CV. This is one of the formats we will be talking about in 2 weeks. In cover letters, in application essays, even when you apply for studies, not just for a job, yes, still you can promote yourselves as a very experienced person based on a number of daily routines and things you have done so far. If we, yep.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to say that there is a kind of approach that we supposed to use a power words when we put the keywords actually also on a CV and gain our self-confidence that we are the one who achieved something. And what you said is actually what I see also when I talk to the students, that very often they are not aware of their achievements already. They very often forget that they were very active in some volunteer actions or in a science conferences or whatever. And those things are very important for the recruiters, not only a professional experience gained during the internships, but also those activities during the studies.
Yes, and you touched on a very relevant point that it's not only about formal experiences or formal roles. Yes, it's mainly about informal activities. As part of our studies, we do engage with a number of various activities that aren't formalized, that aren't written on our diploma, but we can still promote them. So don't forget that if you are asked whether you have professional experience, you can refer to many activities you did informally or formally as part of your studies, but they aren't precisely indicated on your diploma. It's not necessary to have it, particularly if you don't have any long employment history, formal history. Now, in the final and shorter part of this webinar, I'll be again looking at the 7 core areas, but in the context of planning your essay or research paper. So one of the most popular academic coursework that you do during your studies. So when you think about communication, so the first area of transferable competencies that we've identified here, it's about formulating arguments clearly. It's about explaining complex ideas in an understandable way, more concisely. So this is the practice you can develop, you can focus on when planning and writing your essay. When you think about creativity, how you can develop your creativity skills and how can you tell about them later in job applications, you can try select unique examples, unpopular examples in your research work. You can try connect different points. You can propose new methods. So all these activities I have already mentioned. When it comes to stress management, of course, you have to meet deadlines when writing your essays or research papers. You have to sometimes adjust your work to unexpected challenges, such as limited access to sources, such as a need to revise an argument or structure, because you are asked to do so by your lecturers or seminar tutors, because you are required to do so because you can't find as many sources as you planned to do when you started planning your essay. And finally, I'm trying to differentiate between 2 terms, analytical thinking and critical thinking. They are very often used interchangeably, even within the academia, but analytical thinking skills relate more to interpret data that we collect accurately and coherently, for example, coherently with our own argument. This is what I will be talking about in a second. Whereas critical thinking skills relate more to ability to evaluate reliability of sources, credibility of sources, to contextualize our argument, yes, which means also to integrate counter arguments and to discuss how we can defend our own argument, our own perspective against possible counter arguments or alternative explanations, alternative theories that can provide foundations for alternative explanations. Yes, so we do not focus only on our own perspective, on our own argument, but we can try to compare them and make them more nuanced, relativize them also. Yes, leadership skills relate to coordinating group tasks if we work on a group project, but also we can organize our own tasks in time. Yes, we can help others for help, as I've mentioned, as part of our individual work. And again, you can tell the story of writing your research, of collecting your data, of asking someone for help when speaking to your recruiters later. Independence is about researching data alone, independently. It's about the process, the difficult process of shortening the text. We very often have to face it, yes, because we can write too much, and then we have to adapt our length to the word count. Working systematically, okay, keeping ourselves motivated. And emotional intelligence refers to giving the work purpose and meaning, especially when it's difficult or tedious. So these are many aspects that you can look at, or many perspectives you can take when planning and writing your research or essay. And why should we focus on developing these transferable skills when writing an academic paper? What's the goal? What's the purpose? So it's about developing our career prospects, about using our work to promote our achievements in any recruitment processes, to improve our performance in many other situations in life, not just in work. But also, it helps us study more effectively. We can better self-assess our papers, our academic assignments before their submission. We can probably better understand the assessment criteria of our schools and universities. We can also be more effective when writing revisions in response to feedback. For example, if we send scientific publication drafts to prestigious journals that are acknowledged globally, we are asked for revisions. And once we understand and apply with purpose the transferable skills, we can better understand the revision requests and better respond to them, or even better explain our reviewers how we approach the process of doing the revisions, so that the risk that we will be asked again to do these revisions further is lower. Okay, I will share part of my materials, how you can plan and prepare your essays or research papers with purpose, yes? So trying to develop the transferable skills and improve your grade just by the way. First of all, a solid research paper, a solid academic paper shows that we are able to present our own point of view clearly, so in a way that is understandable for others, and coherently, so by focusing on selected points only, without making too many digressions, yeah, without forgetting about our main research goal, about our main hypothesis or argument. Also, a good paper shows that we are able to defend our point of view once it's articulated clearly, to defend it consistently in every part of the paper, again, without any digressions, and critically, which means basically through our own evaluation of data and their sources. We should start by mapping out our topic, so defining what's the topic about and why is it relevant. Yes, very often, as you know, we have to either just present an argument like in your essays, or present a so-called research problem in research papers, and based on this research problem develop certain research questions. Whatever we do, whether it's an essay or a longer research paper, you should narrow down your topic, making sure that your research will be feasible. For example, you will be able to access data quite easily, and that your topic will be precise. Yes, you have to define, you have to determine what are the actors, like organizations or individuals, you are going to analyze, what processes you are going to analyze, events, decisions, situations, as well as any causes and or effects of those processes. Yes, so you have to be very strict in deciding what's the scope of your research, because this is part of our abilities to communicate clearly and effectively, understandably, but also it helps us defend our argument coherently and consistently, as I've mentioned. So based on the process of narrowing down the topic, we can then formulate the main argument. And we have to make sure that whatever examples, whatever conclusions we make throughout the process of writing down our research, we refer back to our own argument. So it helps us by having defined a clear argument. We can be more focused, and this also spares our time because we know what to search for, what kind of information to look for. We can decide very quickly what kind of sources and information is relevant for us, as long as we have a clearly defined and narrowed down argument or hypothesis or question. And finally, we have to defend this argument critically. I've already mentioned what critical thinking means, but more practically in the context of essay or research paper writing, we can say that instead of just summarizing data, summarizing information that we have gathered from elsewhere, we should compare data or update data or expand existing debates or test theory in practice. So we should be able to show that we have our own approach, not only repeat what we have read from the sources, but what do we make of it? Yes, it's just about taking our own approach, which reaches beyond the individual approaches proposed in individual existing sources. And for all of these things, we have to develop a solid, a clear structure. This is our mind map, which organizes our argument in a logical way and which allows us to defend our position, our argument systematically, step by step. So always in an introduction, start with presenting a clear argument and explaining why this argument is relevant without developing long contexts like historical context, particularly in short essays. Focus on present your own argument and say why it's relevant, as well as outline the structure of the main text already in your introduction. Very briefly, say how many chapters or sections or subsections you are going to develop. For example, you can say, I will discuss events X, Y, and Z in 3 main chapters. And each time I will be comparing factor A with factor B, so section 1 and section 2, okay, trying to decide which of the factors prevail. Provides a better explanatory tool to explain my events X, Y, Z. This also again allows you to stay organized and very focused when developing your main text. And this is a very relevant tool that will help you to make clear presentations at your companies in the future, wherever you will be working, okay, to communicate with others more effectively, because if you are better organized, your arguments are stronger also. It's more difficult for someone to tackle with your arguments. But even if so, you are also ready to respond or to accept others' arguments if these are convincing, yes? But you can be more convincing also by organizing your argumentation. And then in the main text, of course, you defend your main argument. Again, try to develop a diversified structure with chapters, sections, subsections, etc. Write short paragraphs so your text is easier to read for someone. In each paragraph, focus on one point and your own introductory sentence and your own concluding sentence that in turn relates back to your main argument. So you remain focused again. This is a good tip, how to remain focused. And in the summary or conclusion, you summarize your defense. If it's only a summary, you basically narrow down yourself to just summarize your main points from the main text. If it's conclusion, which typically needs to be developed in longer research papers or dissertations, you have to not only summarize your key points from the main text, but also discuss broader implications of your research findings, how it can be developed later by other scholars, for example. Yes. And finally, don't forget about referencing. And again, this is a practice that you can use later at your work. It depends. You may be asked to write reports or whatever analysis. You will have to be good in providing formal references. But even if not, you can always collect references to be able to defend logically, purposefully, and credibly your own position. Therefore, it's good to have the references, to organize the information, and also to allow others to verify them. We basically in academia, we have to provide in-text references if we use the Harvard style, or footnotes on individual pages if we apply the Chicago style. But always we should include page numbers as frequently as possible, mainly if we refer to specific data, but not necessarily in these situations. And we should try to use multiple sources, diversify sources, because this is one of the ways how we can develop more credible work. Yes. We should never expect that an individual source, even if of a high quality seemingly, is totally credible and reliable. But if we diversify different sources coming from different actors and different perspectives, then it's more likely that the final conclusions will be more reliable just because they come from across different sources. Bibliography is needed, and of course it's about applying appropriate format, because by applying different formats we can inform the reader whether it's a monograph that is authored by one author, or academic journal articles, or non-academic articles, newspapers, or official documents, or videos, blogs, podcasts. And you can see a link on the slide, citethemrightonline.com, which is a very useful tool to search for different types of sources and to check how you can refer them appropriately in your academic work. Okay, any final questions? Natalia, can you see anything?
Usually I met the question like how we can reach to you for some consultation, or like how people who are interested in more in deep and individual perspective can contact you.
Yeah, so basically, again, we are asking you to start thinking about how you can develop kind of mind map, yes, and collect examples of your experiences. But of course, we can work together to try to personalize whatever we have been talking about right now and develop your own portfolio. So you can think of the mind map, of the kind of portfolio, professional portfolio, as a foundation based on which you can craft a standout CV or cover letter, etc. So you can reach out to me or to Natalia. Natalia will be going to tell us more about presence on social media in 2 weeks from now. So we are inviting you to this session. But basically, you can contact us for any personalized advice. You can see our contact details right now on the screen. We run also our home pages, globalstudymentor.com, which is in English, and careerchange.pl. But basically, you can contact us through LinkedIn, through Instagram, and ask any personal questions if you have any. But we also encourage you to download our guidebook if you haven't done so far. About more than 100 pages full of tips and checklists covering the topic from today, but also other topics. You can use it as a good complementary material to our webinars because it offers a broad spectrum of different approaches and processes you can use to prepare yourselves better for studies, for internships, for scholarships, and for early career.
Exactly. We have a lot of tools, I'm saying about all job seekers, a lot of knowledge around us, but sometimes we don't know how to properly use it, how to present ourselves, because there's too many actually those informations, and sometimes we are lost in those. It's good when someone else
yes, particularly if such
build
mentors
our confidence.
Yeah, so particularly if such mentors can offer insights into what we do not know about. Yes, for example, insights into recruitment processes, what you can offer, Natalia, when it comes to applying for jobs, what to expect also, yes, how to identify our own, what we were talking about 2 weeks ago, how to identify our own goals and expectations and working styles and approaches to learning, and based on that, how to align our studies, how to choose our studies so that they can be aligned better with our own expectations and abilities. And the same concerns job applications. We can better prepare ourselves to make more informed decisions regarding where we want to apply. How do we want to work? Yes, whether online or in person, whether in group or individually, whether more mobile. There are different pathways and different modes how we can work and cooperate with others. And this is also what we help you with, yes? And we are meeting again in 2 weeks from now for the final session about building a global portfolio and outreach, where we'll be talking more about different formats of CVs, application documents such as cover letters, application essays, etc., etc. And we'll also be sharing some tips how to apply for internships and jobs more consciously, making more informed decision, and also how to find hidden opportunities. Natalia will also be talking about social media presence and how to use a variety of tools that are available to us, because information, data, and tools are very rich currently. We don't suffer from the lack of information or the lack of tools, but we suffer from our abilities to select appropriate tools that are personalized and tailored to our own expectations. That's what we are trying to do, and that's how we are trying to help you.
Exactly. And at the end, we can save our time and simply be happier with the study or simply a proper job that we choose at the very beginning.
Yeah, so if we don't see any questions, we can finish for now. Thank you very much for being with us, and all the best, and hope to see you again in 2 weeks. And of course, if you have any questions, just reach out to us. Bye-bye.